Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here are your top stories on Monday, the 3rd of November. Trapped by cladding. Maidstone flat owners demand immediate action after 2-year delay to vital fire safety repairs.
Our homes should be our safe space, and currently I don't really feel safe in my own home, through no fault of my own.
Put yourself in our shoes. Maidstone and Medway parents hold silent protest demanding a revamp of the education system to help their children with special educational needs.
We're here today for a silent protest to support our children and get every bit of support we can, as we feel like the system is failing our children within all our schools.
And hip hip, Hippo Ray, the world-famous Haggis the pygmy hippo, arrives at Wingham Wildlife Park to join an important breeding programme.
We need more babies, so yeah, it's hard to get boys. They breed more girls than they do boys, but we want baby haggises.
But first, our top story this evening. Flat owners in Maidstone have been left living in fear and unable to sell their homes for half a decade. This comes after delays in replacing roof cladding after the Grenfell disaster. The required works at the Kingfisher Meadow block in the town centre have been held up following a dispute between the property's developer, Taylor Wimpey, and freeholder Wallace Estates, a delay which occupants say has led to financial and safety concerns. Both companies say resident safety remains the top priority, but that the repairs are the responsibility of the other party, as Alfie Rowe's been finding out.
For those living at Kingfisher Meadow, it's easy to feel that you're trapped behind bars. Homeowner Aidan Martin has lived in the apartment complex for the last 8 years. But recently, this has come at a cost.
In 2020, we started seeing quite a lot of mortgage applications being turned down, forcing residents to remortgage with the same company without necessarily being able to get better offers from other mortgage lenders, simply because the cladding is deemed unsafe. If we do have a fire, and hopefully we don't, we'd be at significant risk. More practically, every time I try and remortgage my property, I need to just go with the best rate that my current lender offers me, because any new lender has always estimated that the value of my property is £0.
Following the Grenfell Tower fire in London, where 72 people died in part due to unsafe cladding, developers pledged to carry out fire safety works on similar buildings. But 2.5 years later, Kingfisher Meadow is no closer to essential repairs. In the meantime, mortgages have been restricted, sales collapsed, and residents are no safer.
Our homes should be our safe space, and currently I don't really feel safe in my own home, through no fault of my own.
I've now got a partner looking to start my own family, but unable to sell the property, move up the property ladder. This is supposed to be a stepping stone, but it's more of an anchor.
I wanted to bring my son up in a different area. I've not been able to. I just feel trapped. I'm concerned I'm living in an unsafe building, and recently we've now been deemed at such high risk. We've got a wake and watch team here, which it's just unbelievable.
The hold-up has been caused by an ongoing legal dispute between the property developer and the freeholder. Asked for comment, the developer, Taylor Wimpey, said in a statement, "Resident safety remains our top priority, and we fully understand the frustrations caused by delays. We remain fully committed to funding remedial works for fire safety critical elements of the development and expediting all works as soon as possible." A spokesperson for the freeholder, Wallace Estates, said, "Wallace Estates have been continuously engaged with the developer for several months now in an effort to get them to remediate all defective blocks, regardless of height, at Kingfisher Meadow. In addition to the 6 blocks that the developer has committed to remediating, we have successfully agreed the remediation of a further block and are in ongoing discussions with the developer in relation to a second." But during the uphill legal dispute, the residents remain boxed in, stuck in flats that place them at serious risk. Alfie Rowe for KMTV in Maidstone.
Next, families in Maidstone and Medway have left empty shoes outside council offices to protest the current state of SEND school provision. The Every Pair Tells a Story campaign unites thousands of parents who say the current education system is failing children with additional needs. Kent County Council say they're working to increase the number of specialist school places and expand support in mainstream schools by 2030, while our community reporter Henry Luck has been at County Hall in Maidstone.
Parents have gathered outside Kent County Council with small messages that have a big impact. The hundreds of shoes represent a child with special educational needs whose parents say have been failed by the education system.
Attached to all of these shoes is a note by their parents and guardians about the struggle that they and their children have been through in mainstream education and how much that needs to change.
Let down, there's no support within schools. So my son was given support, he was given funding throughout school up until September. He had it for about a year and a half, 2 years, and they've taken his funding away, and he is now put back into an older year group without any support and going through school without any support within school.
For one parent, a turned down EHCP application has caused problems for her autistic son in nursery.
Over the summer he had the most severe autistic burnout that just caught us completely out of the blue. So we had about 4 weeks in the summer where he was so distressed, his sensory sensitivities were so heightened he couldn't get his clothes on, we couldn't even take him down the park, he couldn't have his nan around the house, and we had to kind of really strip things back and build him back up for school transition. And in my mind it was all completely unnecessary, because if he had a properly supported transition then we could have kept him steady and he could have avoided the distress that a 4-year-old doesn't need to experience.
Kent County Council says it recognises the frustration felt by some families with the SEND education system. Kent County Council says it's creating 664 new places in state-funded special schools and expanding specialist resource provisions in mainstream schools by 2030. Parents of SEND children hope this protest will allow Kent County Council to put itself in their shoes. Henry Luck for KMTV in Maidstone.
Next, a Medway charity that's been supporting homeless and vulnerable people for years has announced it's closing down, citing mounting financial pressures. Gillingham Street Angels was founded in 2018 by Neil Charlick, running several charity shops and food banks across the Medway towns. In a statement, the organisation confirmed they'll be shutting their doors, though for now, the food bank in Skinner Street and charity shops in Gillingham and Chatham will continue operating as normal. In a statement, the charity said it was eternally grateful to the people of Medway for their loyalty and for finding the courage to reach out for their help. Next, a railway engineer from Margate has avoided prison after a single punch left a man with catastrophic brain damage and needing lifelong care. Buster Lakey admitted to the attack in Ramsgate, where he punched Mark Hughes after a whiskey tumbler was thrown at his car, smashed his windscreen and sparked a confrontation. Lakey admitted inflicting grievous bodily harm but denied a more serious charge of causing grievous bodily harm with intent during a trial at Canterbury Crown Court. Now, work has finally begun to clear the remains of the fire-ravaged former pub on the corner of Milton Road and Queen Street in Gravesend. The former New Inn pub was destroyed in a fire in May 2022, which was believed to have started due to an electrical fault. It comes after the owners of the Grade 2 listed building were served a legal notice to improve the site. The council's cabinet member for Planning and Business Development, Councillor Shane Mockery-Cox, described the site as a blight on the town centre and said enough is enough. In other news now, 2 men have been arrested as part of a murder investigation following the death of a man in Chatham. The police and emergency services were called to a property on Castle Road just after 10 in the morning on Saturday, where a man in his 40s suffered from stab wounds. He died at the scene while being treated by paramedics. Well, with more on this, our reporter Megan Shaw joins me in the studio. So, Megan, what do we know so far about what happened on Saturday morning?
So at 12 minutes past 10 on Saturday morning, the police were called to an incident at a house on Castle Road in Chatham, that's around about the Luton area, where a man was found with stab injuries. We don't yet know the name of the victim, but he was in his 40s and he did die at the scene as he was being treated by paramedics. Police then closed Castle Road and then launched a murder investigation, which is still ongoing now.
I see, and we can see some pictures now of the road in question. Tell me, we can see the police there. Has anyone been arrested yet?
So today, Kent police arrested 2 men on suspicion of murder connected to the incident. That was a 41-year-old and a 40-year-old, so they're both in custody. And yesterday, on the 2nd of November, so the day after the incident, a 45-year-old woman was arrested in connection with that incident, but she's since been bailed pending further inquiries.
I see. And what have the police said?
So alongside launching that murder investigation and cordoning off Castle Road, they're asking for any witnesses who have not yet come forward to do so, to get in contact, especially asking for residents in the area who have CCTV cameras and footage, and motorists who might have dash cams, being asked to check their footage to see if they have any evidence on there.
I see. Thank you so much for bringing us this story, Megan. Now, it is time for a quick break, but coming up, we'll look at all the Kent football matches from the weekend, including the heartbreaking FA Cup matches. That, of course, includes Gillingham's face-off against Newport County. Just lost it on penalties there. Ebbsfleet obviously went away to Grimsby Town. They suffered a 3-1 loss and unfortunately did also get a red card. So could they have done it with 11 men instead of 10? Well, we'll find out. We'll also be speaking to the people of Rochester to see what they think about fireworks in the lead-up to Bonfire Night. And we'll be getting the scoop on a Kent Online campaign calling for a fairer blue badge system. Well, we'll have all that and certainly more after this very short break. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Now it's time to take a look at the Kent football from around the county, including those FA Cup matches I mentioned before the break. Let's have a look. Welcome to Prince's Park, where the Darts will be hopeful they can collect 3 points here against a struggling Welling side that have lost 9 of their last 12 games in the Isthmian Premier. Oh, and it's a nightmare start for Dartford. No more than 3 minutes after the opening whistle, it's launched up to Welling's frontline and it's fired in by Ruben Shakpoke to put United forward early. And it could have stayed that way into the second half, but it was another early goal right after the whistle. Any stragglers back to their seats will have been sorely disappointed. Launched forward to Ollie Box on the left wing and just past the waiting boot of Eddie Desane, who hits it into the keeper and it bobbles into the net. And only 2 minutes later, Desane finds himself with the ball in the box and just calmly slots it past the keeper again to turn it around. It's been a game of quick goals so far. And Desane is just everywhere, plays it into space on the left, pays back Box for that assist earlier with a well-weighted ball, and he fires it to cement a victory for the Darts in the 79th minute. What a strike and what a scoreline for Desane. Well, that does chalk up 3 more points for the Darts, but it wasn't so lucky for some of the other Isthmian Premier teams. Ramsgate were hit badly. The announcement of their manager's resignation, combined with a scoreline of 5-0 against them, is certainly a concern, with one of those being an own goal. Folkestone Invicta, on the other hand, did manage to clutch a win at home against Billericay Town. Well done to the Seasiders. What a season they're having. Coming up, Dartford will face Wingate and Finchley. Folkestone will head to Welling in the midweek, and the Rams have Cheshunt at home. For any Chatham fans wondering where they are, let's have a look at the FA Cup results. And it is bad news across the board for the Garden of England's teams, with Gillingham failing to defeat Newport County away, eventually losing on penalties. Ebbsfleet fell victim to Grimsby's strong cup form that felled Man United in the Carabao. They scored the first but ended up losing 3-1 and picking up a red card in the process with a late challenge from Ben Chapman. Questions will be raised about what they might have been able to do with 11 men. And Chatham travelled to the Silverland Stadium in Wales to face off with the lower league opposition of Buxton, but suffered a heartbreaking defeat, 2-1, after a 114th minute winner. A ridiculous strike from distance to seal their fate. You hate to see it happen. Well, with all 3 teams out of the cup, let's see where they'll be heading next. Gillingham will go down to Bristol to face off with the Rovers. Ebbsfleet will have a Kent derby in the midweek with Maidstone at home. And Chatham will have their own midweek fixture against Billericay Town. Hopefully, all 3 can bring things back with points across the leagues. Then for your teams in the National League South, Maidstone lost out to East Kent rivals Tunbridge with only the 1 lone goal to their 2. Dover did not have a fixture this weekend, but they will be heading up to Horsham in the midweek, while the Stones travel to North Kent to face off against the Fleet, and the Angels have a midweek match against Chelmsford. Well, not only is that everything for Kent's teams in the Cup, but that's also it for this week's Football Roundup. Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website. That's kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about how Kent County Council is preparing for the colder months.
Things are about to get icy, but don't worry, Kent's bringing the grit. Each year, Kent County Council's Highways team prepares for the colder months with an operation to keep Kent's roads safe and moving.
Now, I promise you I'm not super short. I'm just stood behind 4,000 tonnes of salt, which enables Kent to have safer, less hazardous roads when it comes to those icy conditions during the winter time.
This year, the service will run from October to April, with a period from December to February. Residents can expect to see gritters out if temperatures are predicted to dip below 0 degrees. Last winter, the team carried out 57 primary salting runs and used over 11,500 tonnes of salt.
You can't really improve on perfection, but we have changed the routes. The routes are much more streamlined. The guys are going out on the practice run today to make sure they know exactly which routes they're going to cover. We can only really do 30% of our roads. As I've said, we do most of the A roads, most of the B roads. We get a lot of help from local farmers. They go out in their local areas and we pay them to do that for us, but they don't get paid very much, but they do a great service out on the rural roads.
In addition to primary routes, designated snow routes will be treated during severe weather, with 3,000 salt bins scattered across Kent. Improvement to road drainage is to be expected too. in order to prevent hazardous conditions caused by standing water and flooding, which can be especially dangerous in winter. Kent's Highways team is prepared to tackle winter head-on, carefully salting away at the season's challenges and making sure Kent roads stay steady when the cold sets in. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Alresford.
Well, let's see if we need some of those gritters for our upcoming weather. Let's see just how cold it is. Let's have a look. This evening we'll see partly cloudy skies, temperatures averaging around 14 across the country, highs of 15 in Dover. Tomorrow morning, temperature and weather remains the same, highs of 14, lows of 13 in Tunbridge Wells. And into the afternoon now, more clouds to be expected, highs of 15 in Dover. Most temperatures will remain similar. And here is your outlook for the coming days. On Wednesday, the county will experience highs of 17. Towards the end of the week, things getting slightly cooler, highs of 16, clouds continuing, and temperatures dropping off to 15 on that Friday. Next up, the 5th of November is only a few days away, with thousands in Kent set to be heading out and about to celebrate Bonfire Night with a bang. But there are growing calls to have tougher restrictions on fireworks because of safety and the impact of the noise on young children and animals. But what do you think? We asked shoppers in Rochester for their thoughts.
I think Guy Fawkes Night's a tradition in our country, and we celebrate it every year, but usually by fireworks and parties, which is very nice when people can come together.
I think in some senses it's good for us to remember historical events so that children, I had 4, I now have 7 grandchildren, so they know something of the history of their country and how things came to be.
If it's like kept to a low level, so it doesn't like increase a lot of the pollution, like to a significant level, then I'm fine with it.
I don't like the fact that, fireworks start going off at the beginning of October and don't end until the end of November. But as long as they're regulated and they're not being sold to underage kids and stuff, and we don't have them firing fireworks down the high street out of pieces of guttering and stuff, it's, I think they're okay.
We always had a big bonfire, family bonfire and so on and so forth, and fireworks. Nowadays, I'm amazed that people can afford to buy fireworks.
They should be restricted so people can have fireworks on Bonfire Night on the 5th, or maybe if it's in the middle of the week, the weekend before Bonfire Night.
Yeah, so I think there should be a limit on how late fireworks go off.
I'd say 11, midnight.
I think 10 o'clock is late enough.
Maybe 11 or 12 max.
Now, Kent Online's campaign calling for a fairer blue badge system has been shortlisted in the National Making a Difference Awards. From agenda-setting investigations, crucial campaigns and serious scoops, the scheme recognises the public's favourite campaigns from the past year. Kent Online's came after countless readers wrote in to share how the current blue badge system is letting you down. The campaign made it all the way to Parliament, as Ellie Hodgson told me earlier. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So if we start right at the beginning, how did the whole campaign actually start?
Well, it was down to the readers. They got in contact and basically said that the current blue badge system was not fit for purpose, in the sense that they had a short-term condition or they were having cancer treatment, but because they couldn't prove that it would last for 3 years, unfortunately they weren't eligible for a blue badge. So we started telling the story of Sandy Burr, who was a cancer patient, had had a toe amputation, blood clots in her lung, and still wasn't eligible for a blue badge. And that sort of started the whole story as such, because we realised that there was some change that was needed. And from that initial story, so many people got in contact with us to say, oh, I'm also, left out by the current policy.
I see. And the nomination for the award comes with plenty of exposure. Do you think this kind of attention will help people fight for hopefully a fairer system?
Absolutely. I think that although this is a sort of local campaign that we've been championing at Kent Online, I think it goes far beyond our county. I think the issue of the blue badge eligibility is something that people across the county and country will resonate with. So at the moment, every county has a different blue badge system as such, because there is some sort of discretion that each council has. And obviously what we've been calling for is a local discretionary policy so that people that want a blue badge but might not need it for 3 years can have one. So at the moment, we've been asking the government to reconsider its eligibility criteria so that people across the country, not just in Kent, can access a blue badge when they need it in their worst moments.
I see. And the award is from the News Media Association. It aims to highlight value journalism that, the value journalism creates within society with the award. We've heard a bit about what the Blue Badge Battle is doing. Tell us a bit more about why you hope, obviously, this nomination might be victorious.
Well, I think it just highlights how important this campaign is. I want people to support this campaign and vote for us, not only because it's an amazing campaign, but because it resonates with them. A lot of us have been touched by somebody that is undergoing cancer or cancer treatment or has a short-term illness that's super serious and affects their mobility that might not last for 3 years. So I think for us to get this recognition through this campaign, we're doing something that matters to our readers and to our audience, would be amazing. And it's such an important issue that I think is well worthy and deserves highlighting through these awards.
Absolutely. And before we go, tell us, how can people help and support the campaign?
So the voting opened today and it's only until Thursday that you can vote. So what I would urge people to do is go on to the News Media Associate website and go to the Making a Difference Award and vote for Kent Online's Blue Badge Battle campaign. We've been working tirelessly for 8 months now to try and change the system and make it fairer for people. So if they could just take one moment out of their day to vote, that would mean the world to us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Now it's time for a break, but coming up we'll learn about delays in replacing roof cladding after the Grenfell disaster has left flat owners in Maidstone unable to sell their homes. All that and more after this short break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here's a reminder of your top stories on Monday, the 3rd of November. Trapped by cladding, Maidstone flat owners demand immediate action after 2-year delay to vital fire safety repairs. Put yourselves in our shoes. Maidstone and Medway parents hold silent protest demanding a revamp of the education system to help their children with special educational needs. And hip hip, hippo Ray. The world famous Haggis the pygmy hippo arrives at Wingham to join important breeding programme. But first, a look back at our top story. Flat owners in Maidstone have been left living in fear and unable to sell their homes for half a decade after delays in replacing roof cladding after the Grenfell disaster. The required works at the Kingfisher Meadow block in the town centre have been held up following a dispute between the property's developer, Taylor Wimpey, and freeholder, Wallace Estates, a delay which occupants say has led to financial and safety concerns. Both companies say resident safety remains the top priority, but that the repairs are the responsibility of the other party, as Alfie Rowe's been finding out.
For those living at Kingfisher Meadow, it's easy to feel that you're trapped behind bars. Homeowner Aidan Martin has lived in the apartment complex for the last 8 years. But recently, this has come at a cost.
In 2020, we started seeing quite a lot of mortgage applications being turned down, forcing residents to remortgage with the same company without necessarily being able to get better offers from other mortgage lenders, simply because the cladding is deemed unsafe. If we do have a fire, and hopefully we don't, we'd be at significant risk. More practically, every time I try and remortgage my property, I need to just go with the best rate that my current lender offers me, because any new lender has always estimated that the value of my property is £0.
Following the Grenfell Tower fire in London, where 72 people died in part due to unsafe cladding, developers pledged to carry out fire safety works on similar buildings. But 2.5 years later, Kingfisher Meadow is no closer to essential repairs. In the meantime, mortgages have been restricted, sales collapsed, and residents are no safer.
Our homes should be our safe space, and currently I don't really feel safe in my own home through no fault of my own.
I've now got a partner looking to start my own family, but unable to sell the property, move up the property ladder. This is supposed to be a stepping stone, but it's more of an anchor.
I wanted to bring my son up in a different area. I've not been able to. I just feel trapped. I'm concerned I'm living in an unsafe building, and recently we've now been deemed at such high risk. We've got a wake and watch team here, which it's just unbelievable.
The hold-up has been caused by an ongoing legal dispute between the property developer and the freeholder. Asked for comment, the developer, Taylor Wimpey, said in a statement, "Resident safety remains our top priority, and we fully understand the frustrations caused by delays. We remain fully committed to funding remedial works for fire safety critical elements of the development and expediting all works as soon as possible." A spokesperson for the freeholder, Wallace Estates, said, "Wallace Estates have been continuously engaged with the developer for several months now in an effort to get them to remediate all defective blocks, regardless of height, at Kingfisher Meadow. In addition to the 6 blocks that the developer has committed to remediating, we have successfully agreed the remediation of a further block and are in ongoing discussions with the developer in relation to a second." But during the uphill legal dispute, the residents remain boxed in, stuck in flats that place them at serious risk. Alfie Rowe for KMTV in Maidstone.
Next, thousands of parents of children with additional needs have been protesting across Kent at the state of SEND school provision here in the county. Parents have been leaving empty shoes outside the offices in Maidstone and Medway to bring awareness to what they say is a failing education system. KCC say they're working to increase the number of specialist school places and expand support in mainstream schools by 2030. Earlier on in the show, we focused on protests in Maidstone, but I also spoke with Katrina Crowhurst, who was organising the demonstration outside Gun Wharf in Medway. So thank you so much for joining us, Katrina. And we can see here on the screen a line of shoes leading to the Medway office. Now, tell us, what do these pairs of shoes represent?
So the symbolism of the shoes was to represent each pair of shoes represents a child who has been failed by the SEND system or missed education because of failures due to the broken system. And it's just a physical representation to try and bring to life that they're real people, they're real children that have suffered because of this.
And is that why you chose the shoes, to almost show that, you know, these are real people affected, they're not just numbers on a sort of statistics board or anything like that?
Exactly, and even some of the shoes we noticed were brand new school shoes, never worn, because the child is still waiting for a school placement, so the shoes have been outgrown before they've even been able to be worn.
Now, it wasn't just in Medway that we saw this, it also happened in Maidstone. Tell us a bit more about the wider movement. You mentioned there a broken system. What needs to change?
Well, it's actually a nationwide movement that's happened in local authorities all around the country, and it isn't just Medway or Kent that have the broken system. It is a nationwide problem. It's something that has been going on for many, many years. Children's needs are not being met, parents aren't being listened to, and the system just needs a huge overhaul with the involvement of parents and carers to ensure that it's meeting the needs of the children who they know best.
Absolutely, and you mentioned there, you know, issues with schooling, but there's all sorts of things that people might not really realise. There's transportation, there's accommodation for, you know, whether the disability is mental or physical. Tell us, what kind of barriers are there to people who are seeking SEND provisions, not just the children themselves, but the adults as well?
There's a lot of emails gone unanswered, complaints unheard, and it's just, there's constant barriers and delays that have been caused, not because of people not, you know, filling out the forms correctly or anything like that. The delays are done because there isn't enough people in the places that need them to be able to create these packages for the child's education or to support the adult as they get older.
I see. So for anyone out there, how can they help? How can they support this nationwide movement?
I think for people who, I mean, all STEM parents, we need to get together. We need to show the powers that be that we're not backing down. We do fight, and these are our children. For people who don't necessarily have much understanding of SEN, is to listen to people and to try and find a way of supporting the community around them, and then obviously taking it further to the top where, you know, councils have to listen to the parents, listen to the professionals, because sometimes the professional reports are ignored because it's too expensive to do what they've suggested, and ultimately treat the children as real people, not just a number on a piece of paper.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for your time today. Next, millions of pounds are being spent replacing faulty doors at a £40 million young offenders centre in Rochester. This comes just a year after it was forced to close over safety concerns. Oasis Restore was billed as Britain's first secure school, promising rehabilitation instead of punishment. But Ofsted found serious failings, including doors that wouldn't lock and reports of violence against the staff. The government say the centre is expected to reopen next year after major repairs. Megan Shaw has more.
It's called a secure school, but actually the first thing it is a home, a secure home.
These were the words of optimism just over a year ago from the founder of the country's first so-called secure school, first opened last May in Rochester. Now, a year on, the situation looks a little bleaker. Oasis Restore, a young person's rehabilitation school centred around education over punishment, lasted around a year before it had to close due to safety concerns raised by Ofsted. Now, the government has footed an additional £3 million bill to replace around 180 internal doors destroyed by inmates. During a public accounts committee on the 23rd of October, further revelations about the strength of the doors came to light.
The doors in particular, they weren't doors to places where people slept, but they were doors to corridors, dining areas, kitchens, visit rooms, education, etc. So those internal doors, and they had been used before in a secure setting. They were tested, but actually when they were used in this setting, they proved not to be as effective as we would like them to be.
The Taxpayers Alliance raised concerns over such a large sum of government money being funneled into an increasingly disastrous project. Taxpayers were told this experiment would transform youth justice, but instead it's become another costly failure where violent offenders are running riot and staff are under attack. Safety concerns cast a large shadow over a project supposed to offer a softer solution to rehabilitation. The Ministry of Justice has said that alongside restoring doors, offering additional support and safeguarding is a priority. With the school set to reopen in March 2026, perhaps there are bigger lessons than vocational skills ahead. Megan Shaw for KMTV in Rochester.
Now it is time for a quick break, but coming up we'll learn more about Haggis, the pygmy hippo who rose to fame after appearing on SNL in the United States, and how she's settling into her new home in Kent as part of the international breeding programme for the endangered species. We'll also look at a new proposal that hopes to bring Folkestone Library back into public use. All that and more after this short break. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. And for you book lovers here in Kent, Folkestone Library might finally return to public use after charity Creative Folkestone submitted a formal proposal to take on the space. Since the building's closure in 2022, Shepway Youth Centre has served as a temporary base for library users. Creative Folkestone hope to restore the historic building, though stressed the project will need significant investment, with the group requiring central government funding to make this possible. The library first opened its doors in 1888 and was said to be built on a strong tradition of community learning, a sentiment the charity hopes to re-establish. And it was a proud moment for a Kent lifeboat crew as a father and son launched together on their first rescue. RNLI Littlestone volunteer Samuel Lay had just finished his training when the Coast Guard called the team to report of a swimmer in difficulty off Hythe. It turned out to be a false alarm, but for Samuel and his father Peter, it marked the first time the third generation of their family had answered the call together. Samuel said he was really excited to follow in his dad and granddad's footsteps, adding it's very rewarding to know he's another link in the chain of volunteers helping to save lives at sea in Littlestone. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. Haggis the pygmy hippo, who gained fame after appearing on Saturday Night Live in the United States, has arrived here in Kent. She's not here in the studio with us, unfortunately, but she is at Wingham Wildlife Park to join in on an international breeding programme for the endangered species. She was born last year in Edinburgh. Haggis set off on the 26th of October to settle into her new home at the park. Maisie Walker visited to celebrate both Haggis's arrival and her birthday, and as you can tell, I'm very jealous. Let's have a look.
She's small, she's sassy, and she's a global star. Haggis the pygmy hippo starred on Saturday Night Live in the USA and captured hearts when she was born in Edinburgh. And now she's making a splash in Kent. And just like me, her reversing needs a little bit of work.
I'm outside Wingham Wildlife Park to wish a rare pygmy hippo happy birthday in her new home in Kent.
The tiny hippo, native to the forests and swamps of West Africa, was born in 2024 and left Edinburgh on the 26th of October before heading to the site in Kent. She will add to the international breeding programme for the endangered species, with an estimated figure around 2,000 individuals remaining in the wild.
We need more babies, so yeah. So it's hard to get boys. They breed more girls than they do boys, but we want baby haggises. So hopefully, when she's old enough, we'll get a breeding recommendation, and then we'll be able to breed. Hopefully, if we've got a boy by then.
Haggis was born on Wednesday, the 30th of October last year, meaning today birthday celebrations were in order. She was given a hippo-friendly cake and birthday cards, though she didn't really seem to like the colour pink.
It's early days yet, but she's, I don't know, she's really, she knows when she wants a treat. She's like already, she pretends don't want it, and then she comes around and then she's like waiting for it. So at first she used to just keep her lips shut. Now she's like, no, I'll have it now. Starting to open her mouth ready for it now. So yeah, she's getting better and better. But it's just time. Test takes time. But in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, you'll see there'll be a difference in the animal, and she'll recognise her keepers properly. And remember, they don't talk Scottish neither.
It's only been a couple of days since Haggis hip-toed into her new home in Kent, but she's clearly making herself at home, and it's clear she's going to be a big character. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Canterbury.
That hippo is so cute, I can't even think of anything like quippy or funny to say. But anyways, if you want to see more stories about some cute animals or anything else around Kent, you can log on to our website. That is, of course, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports. This one not including a cute hippo. This one's about Draper's Windmill in Margate getting a new Grade 2 star listing status. Let's have a look. Kent has deep historical significance as a county, no matter when or where you look, whether it's military, Roman or nautical. But how do you decide what is official, verified history or not? Well, Historic England have a grading system where they'll recommend buildings to become grade listed, and one of Margate's oldest sites, which might have some new wind in its sails, has managed to earn an upgrade. Draper's Windmill was listed as Grade 2 since 1973, which is the most common for listed buildings.
Doing research and looking at it again, we've decided it's worthy of an upgrade to Grade 2 star. Which is only about 5.8% of listed buildings are Grade 2 star. What that means is that it's of more than special interest. It's a particularly important building. This building's particularly important because It's a 19th century smock mill that survives in remarkable condition and survives with a lot of its original machinery, and it still works, which is really fantastic.
Now, windmills used to cover the entire country, and very few actually still remain standing, and even fewer actually work. And that's one of the reasons why Draper's managed to earn its Grade 2 star listing. But it's not always an easy path from restoration to this kind of recognition.
As I said, the milling business was very prosperous in the 19th century, and in about the 1880s, the miller built a fine new villa next to the second windmill, which became my family home. And I grew up there, went to the school, which is just across the road and takes its name from the windmills, Draper's Mills School. And when the mill was threatened with demolition, the head teacher of the school, and my mother, and the rest of the family, and lots of other parents of children at the school, got together to form a charity which saved the mill, and that's why we are where we are today.
Since saving the site, Michael has gone on to work with the team to keep the mill not only well maintained, but even up and running, producing their own flour. The new listing means more legal protections for the 182-year-old building as well, making it less likely to be turned into houses, which has been the case for many other mills of its age across the country. Draper's Windmill is the sole survivor compared to the other two windmills that used to neighbour it, Little Draper's Mill and the Pumper. And the Trust hope that the new grade means the mill will survive for many years more, earning itself another second wind. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Margate. Now for a look at the weather. Tonight we'll see partly cloudy skies, temperatures at around 14 across the county, highs of 15 in Dover tomorrow morning, and the temperature and weather will remain the same, highs of 14, lows of 13 in Tunbridge Wells. Into the afternoon now, more clouds to be expected, highs of 15 in Dover. Most temperatures will remain similar. And here's your outlook for the coming days. On Wednesday, Kent will experience highs of 17. Towards the end of the week, things are getting slightly cooler, highs of 16. Clouds continuing into the next day, where temperatures will drop off to 15 degrees there on Friday. And on Invicta this evening, we'll speak to Tunbridge Juddian Stuart Thomas. He walked from Maidstone to the club's home ground earlier this month to raise money and support for the My Name's Dolly Foundation. We can talk to him more about that journey. Well, thank you for joining us, Stuart. And I suppose my first question is, where did this all start? I know you've done a similar walk in previous years. Tell us about that and where we are now and why this year is different.
Okay, so last year's walk was on the 19th of October, which was about 4 months after I was diagnosed with a brain tumour, a terminal brain tumour called a glioblastoma. So I started being treated for that and being in remarkable health and having had lots of help from the brain tumour charity, I thought in between treatments I would organise a walk to raise money for the brain tumour charity. So we did that on in October, and 50 of us walked along the Medway from Maidstone to Tunbridge Juddian's Rugby Club to deliver the match ball, and we raised £18,000 during that walk. Fast forward a year, and I'm still in remarkable health, although the diagnosis was 12 to 18 months. I'm still kicking on. So I opened my phone one morning to see the reports of Lewis Moody and his diagnosis with MND, and I watched his recording on the BBC, and it reduced me to tears. It just took me straight back to where I was just over a year ago, perplexed and not really understanding what was happening to me. And I saw me in him. I saw the human being struggling to come to terms with what he's been told, and I just was moved to recreate the walk. It was almost to the day a year since the last one, so it seemed appropriate. I know Lewis Moody is a supporter of the brain tumour charity as well, so kind of a quid pro quo. I'll raise some money for research into the cures for MND, and I chose My Name's Doddy Foundation, and we set off on a walk, same walk. Fewer people because it short notice, but 35 to 40 of us did the walk and ended up at the same place, the Rubber Club, to do a speech to them, regarding MND and my condition.
I see. And tell us a bit about what was said in that speech, and how was the walk in general? I mean, quite a distance. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the distance is about 16.5, 17 miles. The walk was fine. I mean, when you get a group of like-minded people with you, walk's very easy. It sounds daunting, but you just plod on, and in no time at all, the time flies and you're there.
Well, you've been watching Kent Tonight live here on KMTV, and there's